Professor Tandwa Ntembo, Vice Chancellor of the Durban University of Technology, DVC Teaching and Learning, Professor Nukutsula Sibia, DVC Research, Innovation and Engagement, Professor Sibusiso Moyo, Executive Dean of Applied Sciences, Professor Suren Singh, and other deans and deputy deans present, Head of Department of Biotechnology and Food Sciences, Professor Piros Swela, colleagues, family, and friends, invited guests, good evening. Welcome to my inaugural lecture. It gives me great pleasure to present my inaugural lecture titled The Battle with Persistent Foodborne Pathogens. Can we win? But before I continue, I'd like to tell you about my research journey. The story I'm going to share will be beneficial to early career researchers and professionals, many of who are watching me right now. Food microbiologists always talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly when referring to microorganisms. Good microorganisms are microorganisms that you use in food processes. Take, for example, you use them for fermentation. Fermentation is when you subject plants or animal tissues to the actions of microorganisms and their enzymes. And at the end of the day, you can increase the quality of the food. Bad microorganisms are microorganisms that cause foodborne illnesses. And foodborne illnesses can be classified into either food poisoning or food infection. And whereas ugly microorganisms are microorganisms that cause food spoilage. In my master's degree, I studied how good microorganisms can help in fermentation of indigenous fermented foods. Ogi. Ogi is a fermented cereal grain common in West Africa. I looked into how those microorganisms can increase the protein content and other quality parameters. In my PhD, I focused on bad microorganisms. I was looking at the incidence of bacterial pathogens in water and how they could be carried over to fresh produce. And I was also looking into prediction with logistic regression analysis. Now, these two sides, good and the bad, are what I now do right now in my current research. In my current research, I look at the incidence of foodborne pathogens that constitute food public health risk, and I also try to look for ways to remove them from food. And also, I'm also interested in indigenous fermented foods. Currently, I have a research with the Russians. It's a research that is being sponsored by National Research Foundation and also Russian Academy of Science. The title of the research is Safety Assessment, Metabolomics, and Antioxidant Potential of African and Russian fermented foods. This year we did a publication, or we did a conference proceedings that we were looking at safety assessment of lactic acid bacteria in South African and Russian fermented foods. I also want to talk about this, BRE. What is BRE? BRE stands for Brown International Advanced Research Institute. Attending BRE in 2014 was a defining moment in my career. Before attending BRE, I struggled to apply for grant. I didn't get grants. Then when the call came for me to apply for BRE, I applied into two institutes. One about water. I was focusing on what I did in my PhD, looking at safety of water, and now that can really impact safety of food. And the other institute that I applied for was on population and development. I was looking at how we can use agro-processing to solve the problem of unemployment and also to solve the problem of gender imbalance in agriculture. And lo and behold, the one that I applied into population and development was taken. And that has really motivated me to inculcate, to include empowerment of smallholder farmers in my research grants application. And since then, I've been able to successfully apply for 3 grants where I've included empowerment of smallholder farmers. And there's a picture that talks about the conference that I hosted in 2017. I make sure that those farmers were part of the conference. They came to listen to people that came to talk from different parts of the world, and they really found it very, very interesting. And I believe that for us to achieve food security, we need to empower our smallholder farmers. And empowerment of smallholder farmers, has to be a kind of collaborative effort from people in academia, from the government, from the retailers, from NGO. And when we empower smallholder farmers, they can grow. They can become emerging farmers. They can become commercial farmers. The potential that we can get from empowerment of smallholder farmers is enormous. And that my visit to farmers, and I think it's very good for us to always visit farmers if you're really working with empowerment of smallholder farmers. You can't really sit down in your office or sit down in your lab. You've got to know what they need, and that can really, guide your application. I'm talking about grant application. That can guide your proposal. That can guide what you do for them, and even guide the type of workshop, the type of training, the type of empowerment sections that you have for them. It was when I had a meeting with them in 2018 that I decided to organize a workshop for them, a symposium for them in 2019. We had people coming from different walks of life to speak to farmers, about how they can add value to their crop, and not only adding value to their crop, how they can have market access, how they can also get finance for them to take their what they are doing to the next place. And I'm going to be having another workshop later in the month, 30th of November. We're going to be having a workshop for farmers. I'm really excited about really doing this type of workshop for farmers. Assuming the Department of Agriculture that has sponsored me 2 times, they will ask me, we sponsor you 2 times. What do you think we can do for our farmers? You know what I'm going to tell them? I'm going to tell them, let's have, farmers initiatives. Let's have farmers initiatives in the 9 provinces. And we can also now guide the farmer initiatives to become Fonterra of this world. Let me tell you about Fonterra. Fonterra is the biggest food company in New Zealand, and the company is owned by 25,000 farmers, and they supply more than 25% of the milk we use in the world. Imagine when we can bring all our farmers together and we can help them add value. We can solve a lot of problems in our country. We can solve the problem of unemployment. We can solve, the problem of inequality. We can solve the problem of poverty in our country. And I think that's one of the things I'm going to really tell, Department of Agriculture. Very, 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 very important. Let me now go to the topic. The battle with persistent foodborne pathogens. Can we win? At the end of my presentation, you should be able to know the persistent pathogens. You'll be able to know the names of the main persistent pathogens. Apart from knowing the names of the main persistent pathogens, you should be able to know why they are so stubborn. In my abstract, I was talking about their strengths. You should be able to know their strengths. Why are they able, to survive, even when you use a lot of antimicrobials to eradicate them, but they're still there, Why are they able to survive? And at the end of the day, you'll be able to know how we can overcome them, how we can tackle them. And if you can get that, then I will have succeeded in my presentation today. But let me just say something. There is no food security without food safety. Food safety is very, very important. It is foundational to food security. And I like, the picture that you are seeing there from FAO 2019, 5 benefits of food safety. And they are very, very important. Food safety will help us overcome the problem of foodborne illnesses. If we want to solve the problem of food losses and food waste, we need food safety. If you want to prepare your food in such a way that it will not cause problem, it will not cause food poisoning, you need food safety. Recently, I read about two kids, or 3 kids that died in Cape Town after consuming Indomie noodles. I don't know what really happened. I don't know how it was prepared. But you can say that when they were preparing the Indomie noodle, they did not put food safety into consideration. Food safety is very, very important for trade and new markets. It's very, very important for trade and new market. It's very, very important for living healthy. So food safety is very, very important. So what I wanted to get from my presentation today is that food safety is important. I don't care how your food is palatable, how your food is delicious, how your food is attractive, how your food is nutritious. If it is not safe, it is not food. It is rubbish. So we must take food safety very, very seriously. I'm one of those that believes in I believe I'm a positive influence in the society. I believe I'm a leader. And one of the things I use to influence thoughts, to influence behaviors, is social media. I'm active on social media. I have a lot of followers on Twitter. I have Twitter account. I have Instagram. I have Facebook. I have a blog. And I know I can use it to change lives. So not too long ago, I posted on Facebook. I said we must be intentional about what we eat. Less sugar, less salt, less meat. And we must be intentional about eating plant-based diets. As someone that has a degree in food science, sometimes I want to focus on food security, on national security. But at other times, I want to focus on food safety. But this particular day, I was focusing on food security, national security. I was trying to encourage people to eat well so that they can solve a lot of problems. We have non-communicable diseases in Africa is going high. I'm talking about diabetes and so many other non-communicable diseases that we have. And I believe when we eat healthy, we can prevent some of those communicable diseases from happening, to us. And that was what I was trying to do. But you see, I got a lot of responses. But one of the responses that I got was from a friend of mine, Dr. George Oko. Dr. George is the HOD of Department of Food Science, University of Nairobi. And he just said something. And he now came in from the angle of food safety. He was talking about the importance of good hygiene. He was talking about hazards that can be in food. And this is the battle we are fighting. We try to eat healthy. We want to eat fruits and vegetables that are high in antioxidants, that are high in phytochemicals, that can help us prevent cancer and what have you. I'm not sure whether you've heard that they said that 1 apple per day will keep you away from the doctor. We want to eat some of those good food, but at the same time, they are risky. They can be easily contaminated with hazard, whether you're talking about pesticides, talking about pathogens, which are biological hazards. So you must always be thinking about that. Interestingly, Dr. Oko really invited me. He invited me to his program that he organized. Is about COVID-19 and food safety. And I think it's very important for us to keep on talking about COVID-19. It has really affected our lives. What we are doing today, I'm having my inaugural, on MS team, is because of COVID-19, but at the same time, some people that will not have been able to see my inaugural, can see it. There are also good things, that have happened because of COVID-19. But we did this program, or he did this program, and he invited me to be one of the panels because, of these misconceptions, of the myths that coronavirus can also be a foodborne pathogen, and we're trying to say no. It's not right, and they sent a lot of questions. One of the questions is that can you get COVID-19 from food packaging? And we try to answer that. That look, it's very rare. It's very rare to get COVID-19 from food packaging, and that COVID-19 is transferred from person to person, from droplets. But foodborne pathogens is through fecal oral routes, and that COVID-19 is not really a foodborne pathogen, or coronavirus that causes COVID-19 is not a foodborne pathogen, and that the coronavirus that causes COVID-19 cannot survive in stomach. The stomach acid will not allow it to survive. Okay, the global state of food safety. In 2015, WHO did a report, the first report ever about the global state of food safety. They were looking at the burden of foodborne illnesses. And they came up with a report that 1 in 10 people have foodborne illnesses every year, and that more than 400,000 people die, many of them children. And they also talked about the hazards that are normally responsible. They talked about salmonella, they talked about cyanide in cassava, they talked about aflatoxin in peanuts and tapeworm. And they mentioned those are the hazards that are normally responsible for foodborne illnesses, or people that die from contaminated food, is because of those 4 hazards. And they talked about it's very, very important for us to invest in training of street vendors rather than penalizing them. But when I look at the statistics, I realize that, it could be more. You can have more people, that die from foodborne illnesses. You can have more people that get sick, every year. Because if you look at the statistics of USA, in the US, 1 in 6 people have foodborne illnesses every year. So you should know that, look, they didn't really do their work very well, because a lot of people, when they are sick, after consuming a particular food, they don't go to a hospital, they don't report it, and so you won't have any recording of what has happened. We don't have food pathogen database in Africa to really monitor, what is going on. And also we have a lot of food safety challenges in Africa. One of the food safety challenges that we have in Africa is that food safety is not a priority in Africa. We have so many other issues. We have the problem of malaria, problem of tuberculosis, problem of hunger. So people don't really focus on food safety, and even problem of corruption. People don't really talk about food safety. But food safety is important, especially in Africa, because it affects Africans more. And there are you can see other challenges. There's no political will. We don't have enough food safety professionals. You can't really enforce the regulation. And then apart from that, you also have the problem of inadequate food safety infrastructure, and also there's no responsible food safety agency. Now, in this presentation, or in my lecture, I'll be focusing on microbiological hazard in food. The other time I was talking to you about different types of hazard. You have chemical hazard, you have physical hazard, you have microbiological hazard. But I'm focusing on microbiological hazard because they really affect us more, and the effect is almost immediate. And examples of microbiological hazards include pathogenic bacteria, viruses, example of viruses that can cause foodborne illnesses, what we call hepatitis A virus, hepatitis E virus, and noroviruses. Take, for example, hepatitis E virus is normally associated with meat, whereas hepatitis A virus and noroviruses are common, with seafood and fresh vegetables. And you also have protozoans. Example of protozoans that could be pathogenic to humans that you can get from eating is what you call Crisposporidium and Giardia species, and you also have parasite like tapeworm that is one of the causative problem in Africa. More than 40 different pathogens, bacterial pathogens, are known, but 7 of them are commonly associated with foodborne pathogen or foodborne illnesses, and they are Listeria monocytogen, Salmonella species, E. coli Y7.87, Clostridium perfringens, Clostridium botulinum, Staph aureus, and Campylobacter jejunum. Don't bother about the names I'm calling, but in microbiology we normally call those names. And Campylobacter jejunum is not really common in Africa. It's common where the weather is very, very cold, like in Europe. Then out of these 7, 3 of them, the first 3, are persistent. They are difficult to be removed. They are difficult to be removed. I'm talking about Listeria monocytogen, Escherichia coli, 0157.87, and Salmonella. These 3 are persistent foodborne pathogens. Okay, I just want to show you a slide about voluntary recall of food in the USA in September and October. You will see these persisters there, although you won't. E. coli is not there, but you will see these persisters. And even currently, FDA USA is, investigating contamination of onions with salmonella, and a lot of people have reported that they are sick in the US, and is a kind of multi-state recall of onions. But you want to ask, is it not a problem in Africa? It's a problem in Africa, but the fact is that because food safety is not a priority, we don't go ahead to check our food regularly. And if you don't check something, you would think it's not there. And people can even eat your food and they can fall ill. So just let you to know that these are the persisters. Okay, let me just tell you briefly about Listeria monocytogen. Listeria monocytogen can be found in decaying soil, can be found in feces of animals, and it's formed biofilms, and it can survive at a very low temperature. Is a microorganism that knows how to survive. It causes listeriosis, and with symptoms like flu-like illness, meningitis, meningoencephalitis, and attracts people like old people, people living with HIV and AIDS, people with low immune system, pregnant women and children are at a higher risk of getting sick from a food that is contaminated with Listeria. Another one is E. coli 1527. E. coli, normal E. coli is an inhabitant of the intestine of mammals, and where it does not cause any disease. But you have some strains of E. coli that could be pathogenic. E. coli 1527 is one of them, and it's one of the sugar toxin producing E. coli. They could be pathogenic. And let me say this, that E. coli 1527 lives in cattle, but it does not cause disease for cattle. But when it contaminates your food, if you don't cook your beef very well and it's in your beef, you can be sick, and it can result in what you call hemorrhagic colitis. It can even cause gastroenteritis and even kidney failure. And last but not the least, among the persisters, Salmonella, it is very highly resistant pathogen, and it can survive in low water activity. And one of the food that is very common with, or that you can associate with Salmonella, is your chicken and poultry. So when you are handling chicken and poultry, you've got to be careful, because most of the time they contain Salmonella. While growing up in Nigeria, 2 diseases were, I was afraid of 2 diseases. One is malaria, another one is typhoid fever. Salmonella is the causative agent of typhoid fever, and so you should know how important Salmonella is. So why are these organisms, the 3 organisms that I've mentioned, why are they stubborn? Why do they survive hurdles? What do I mean by hurdles? Anything that you put in front of microorganisms to stop them from growing is hurdle. Why do they survive hurdles and cause foodborne illnesses? And these are the things you can see. Number 1 is internalization. Number 2 is biofilm formation. They form biofilm, microbial sex adaptation. There's also another problem. You have the problem of antimicrobial resistance and also low infective dose. And some of these factors make them to be resistant to sanitizer. Sanitizer that we use in the produce industry, the number 1 sanitizer we use in the produce industry is chlorine, 200 parts per million of chlorine, because you want to use a concentration that will not be injurious to man, but that will kill the microorganisms. So internalization, what's the meaning of internalization? These pathogens, these persisters, can attach to the surface of produce. Internalization occurs in produce. They can attach to the surface of produce, and they can get into the subsurface structure of the produce through the natural aperture, like your roots, like your lenticels, like the stomata cells, or even the wounds. And when they get into the subsurface structure of the produce, the sanitizer that you are using will not be able to access it. So that's one, internalization. Another one is biofilm formation. What is a biofilm? A biofilm is a complex microbial ecosystem in a matrix of organic polymer. And the microorganism could be single species, or it could be multiple species. In the biofilm, you can have only Listeria there, and sometimes you can have Listeria and Salmonella together. Even E. coli, they can all be together in the biofilms. So when they form biofilm, it's a kind of cover. So it's very, very difficult for the sanitizer to work. According to CDC, 60% of bacterial infections as a result of biofilm formation. Another reason why these persisters are so stubborn is because of microbial stress adaptation. When we're talking about stress adaptation, we're talking about the fact that microorganisms can adapt to what you use to stop them from growing, like your low pH, like your low water activity, like your low temperature. They can adapt to it. And also one negative thing is this: when they adapt to one, they can have cross protection against another. So that's another reason why they are so stubborn. Then antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial resistance is one of the public health challenges over time. Many antibiotics that used to be effective are no more effective. This has been called microbial arms race. And what are the causes of antimicrobial resistance? People have talked about selective pressure. Someone said, I think Charles Darwin said something, it's not the most intelligent that survive, or not the strongest of the species that survive, but the one that is able to adapt to change. So whether you like it or not, there are a lot of pathogens, these pathogens that are able to adapt to change. And because they're able to adapt to change, they're able to survive. That's what we call selective pressure. And other causes of antimicrobial resistance include other causes of antimicrobial resistance include things like the use in agriculture, use in hospital, or inadequate diagnosis. All of these things can lead to antimicrobial resistance. Take, for example, in the United States of America, more than 50% of antibiotics that are used in the United States of America is used in agriculture. So if you really want to solve the problem of antimicrobial resistance, we must look into that. How we must try as much as possible to reduce the use of antibiotics in agriculture. And also, another problem is low effective dose. What's the meaning of low effective dose? We are talking about the amount of colonies, the amount of organisms that can cause infection. For these persisters, you need very few microorganisms to cause infection. So, for example, when you talk about Staphylococcus, maybe you need up to 1 million to cause infection. But for Listeria monocytogenes, Salmonella, and E. coli, just from 10 to 1,000 CFU per gram of your food will cause infection. So and that's why they easily cause infection, they easily cause problems. And before coronavirus, the most popular pathogen in South Africa was Listeria monocytogenes. Everybody knew about Listeria monocytogenes. Remember what happened? Polony contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes caused, death about 200 people and sickness about 1,000 people. So it happened in South Africa, enterprise holding and things like that. And what happened to Tiger Brands, how it affected the company, But something is very strange to me. We don't have any public inquiry. When the food that was produced by PCA, Peanut Corporation of America, where their food was contaminated with salmonella about 2009, and many people died, there was a public inquiry. When a food that was produced by John Tudor and Son in Wales, in United Kingdom, in Wales, and some people died, their food was contaminated. Was contaminated with E. coli 1527. That was a public inquiry. When the food produced by Maple in Canada was contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes, and some people died. It was deli meat. Their deli meat was contaminated. Some people died, and there was a public inquiry. But now, since this thing happened in South Africa, it happened in 2017, 2018, there is no public inquiry. This is not good. And it also speaks to the fact that food safety is not a priority in Africa. And take, for example, if somebody will ask me, what happened? What happened at Enterprise Holding? You are a food scientist. You are a food safety expert. What happened? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to what happened in MAPEL. If it could happen in MAPEL, it can happen in South Africa. If it could happen in Canada, it can happen in South Africa. And this also happened in MAPEL after a public inquiry. And they realized that even before the outbreak of listeriosis in Canada, you know, food safety was not a focus. They didn't focus on food safety in the company and also in the government. Even after, they didn't focus on food safety. ASIP was not implemented very well. You know, Listeria monocytogenes was not on the mind of the people working in the plants. There was not a kind of communication between the CEO and those working, the senior management, you know, in the plants. I mean, that was already happened. And you can say that there was no food safety culture. There was no food safety culture. So how can we win the battle? How can we win the battle? I mean, these are my recommendations. How can we win the battle against these pathogens that they know how to survive? They can contaminate our food. How can we win the battle? If we want to win the battle, we've got to be proactive. We've got to be systematic. If we want to win the battle, all of us must come together. Number one thing that we've got to do is what I've called behavior-based food safety management system. Behavior-based food safety management. What do I mean by behavior-based food safety management? It's a type of management system that we know. In the food industry, the management system that they use is called HACCP. Hazard, Analysis, Critical Control Points. That is what they use. That's the HACCP system. That's what they use. But if you look at the companies that all these outbreaks have occurred, you can say, categorically say that HACCP is not enough. So that's why we recommend what is called behavior-based food safety management system. Let me just quickly tell you the differences between behavior-based food safety management system and the traditional food safety management system. Behavior-based food safety management system focuses on the people and processes. Traditional food safety management system focuses on only the processes. Behavior-based is based not only on food science, but also on organizational culture and behavioral science. Traditional food safety management system is only based on food science. Behavior-based understands that behavior change is complex, but traditional thinks that behavior change is not complex. Take for example, if the people working in your company are not paid well, if they are not motivated, they won't give their best. If there is no leadership in your company, they won't give their best. Behavior-based is based on system thinking, not lateral thinking, like a traditional food safety system. And last but not the least, behavior-based food safety management system is based on having a food safety culture, not just having a food safety program. When you have a food safety program, when people are coming to audit your system, you do the right thing. But when they go, you go back to business as usual. So that's why we recommend behavior-based food safety management system. Another thing is leadership. You know, John Maxwell, you know, the popular leadership expert, said everything falls and rises on leadership. Leadership is very, very important if we want to overcome these pathogens. And Barack Obama demonstrated leadership in 2010 when he signed into law what is called Food Safety Modernization Act. Food Safety Modernization Act is all about thinking about how we prevent pathogens from coming to our food from farm to fork. Prevention. So leadership is very, very important. Another thing that is very, very important is regulatory inspection and training. You know, it's very, very important for the food safety agency from officials of food safety agency to perform unannounced visits to companies, to food holding facility, to check whether they are complying. Don't tell them that you are coming. That is called, that's all about regulatory inspection. And training is very, very important. Excuse me, there must be ongoing training. training of the staff to know whether they understand what food safety is all about. Training must be important, and also I think government must also help, companies, maybe small SMEs that may not be able to afford to train, their workers. Government can also offer help. Not only government, you also have NGOs can also offer help. The innovation is very, very important. I'm thinking of some innovative ideas like blockchain, the use of blockchain. Walmart, has been using blockchain for traceability. The use of lactic acid solution. Meat Corporation of Namibia is using lactic acid solution to decontaminate their meats from E. coli and Salmonella. They're more research. Must keep on doing more research. Must keep doing more research. Collaboration is also very important. As I talk about more research, let me quickly tell you about some of the research that we've done in the past. Some research that we've done in the past. In the past, like I said, we've worked on so many interventions, so many control measures that you can use to remove, pathogens from your food. We've used batrophase, we've used different sanitizers, we've used phenolics, we've used essential oil. But from all the things that we have used, the most effective is this sodium diadoxysulfate. 0.05% of sodium diadoxysulfate will remove all your pathogens. But the problem is this: people don't want, chemicals in their food. But let me say this: 0.5 of SDS, is safe. But people don't want chemicals in their food. Over a few years, one of the food trend is artificial number one enemy. People don't want in their food. So in our research, we've also been looking at how we can use environmentally friendly antimicrobials. Recently, one of our master students just graduated, and what we did was to use response surface methodology to come up with 3 combinations of antimicrobials: niacin, oregano essential oil, and also ultrasound. And we came up with, a combination that was able to lead to more than 3-log reduction of E. coli 1527 and Listeria monocytogenes. And this is higher than what you can achieve with chlorine, which is normally used in the food industry. That we must do further research. There must be further research. There must be further research. We must keep on doing further research. Collab for Safety, an initiative of EU, did a research. The project was sponsored by EU, European Union, and they did a research. Let me call it a survey. They asked food safety experts around the world. They asked them different questions. One of the questions they asked them: can you differentiate between emerging food safety risks and existing food safety risks? Can you also tell us about research gaps? And these are some of the things that they said. Research gap like new horizon scanning method, new detection methods, drivers of food safety, what's the impact of climate change. But when you really look at some of these things, you realize that you need people from different disciplines. And that is how we can really solve this problem: the use of system thinking. People from different disciplines, research encompassing the entire food chain. And so these are areas of research. If you're doing your master's here, you're doing your PhD, and you're thinking of coming up with a proposal in food safety, you should look into these topics. Then collaboration is very, very important. I want to say, out of all the ways we can overcome, collaboration is the most important. There's no leadership without collaboration. You can't have behavioral food safety management system without collaboration. So collaboration is very, very important. And I really value collaboration in my research. And one of the research that we did was to look at how we can use artificial neural network to predict the control of Listeria monocytogenes by bacteriophage. And we couldn't have done this thing if we didn't work with someone from computer science that has a knowledge of computational intelligence. So collaboration is very, very important. When you collaborate, you're able to add value. You're able to bring out knowledge that you will not have been able to bring out if you are just working with people in your field. So I really value working with people from other field, and I think that's how we can solve some of the complex problems that we really have in our society. Another thing that we did, collaboration with a collaborative work that I did was to, the cost estimation of the listeriosis outbreak that occur. We did calculate the direct and indirect cost of the outbreak. We looked at the loss of productivity, we looked at the mortality, the cost of mortality, the cost of hospitalization. We couldn't have done this thing if we didn't work with different people. We work with an economist from University of Maine, United States of America. We work with plant pathologists. We work with the medical doctors. All of us came together. We put our heads together to do the calculation, and we came up that the cost of that outbreak is in excess of $200 million. So collaboration is very, very important. Another collaborative effort that I'm doing right now, I'm editing a book called Food Safety and Toxicology, and I'm doing it with my former PhD student, who is a senior lecturer in Babalola University. We are really trying to come up with a textbook, and I'm happy about this textbook that we are coming up. It's about food safety and toxicology, covering so many topics. And we have majority of people participating are African scientists. We have people from University of Namibia, University of Ghana, University of Nairobi, different universities in Nigeria and also in South Africa. So I'm happy. This is a collaborative effort. I'm happy that at the end of the day, by next year, we're going to have a food safety and toxicology edited book. It's going to be published by De Gruyter in Germany. And collaboration has also been said that if we really want to, we don't want to experience the type of outbreak, the worst listeriosis outbreak ever in South Africa. If we don't want to experience it, we must begin to collaborate. That academics, government, the food industry, the food agency must stop working in a silo. We must come together. It's from an article that was published by Professor Lisa Costin. And one of the things she also said is that South Africa must change. They must revamp their food regulation. They must also have a central food safety unit if they don't want to experience the type of outbreak that they experienced about 4 years ago. Another collaboration that is taking place is between Food Agricultural Organization, also between Wageningen Food Safety and also Silamat. They are trying to come up with a digital tool for early warning system. They want them to come up with a policy document. I'm glad to be one of the Silamat that will be participating in the project. Then we must pay attention to informal food sector. We must pay. The informal food sector is worth, $1 billion in South Africa. We must pay attention. We must support them. We must support the food handlers. In the first picture, I saw this guy selling scones, and I gave him my book. I gave him 50 rand. I encouraged him, to keep doing the right thing. But when I really look at what he's selling, I realized that it didn't meet, food safety regulations. It's not packaged very well because you don't have the label. You don't know the name of the company. You don't know when it was made. You don't know when it's going to expire. You don't know how to trace the company. But we can provide training for all these small businesses or people starting their businesses. We can provide training for them. Then online food. Even before the pandemic, online food had been common, but it's now more common because of the pandemic. We must think about the safety of online food. In the age of terrorism, say for example, if you order a food online, who is this guy bringing the food? What about if this guy puts something in the food you have ordered? So we must begin to think about coming up with food safety standards for this online food. We must think about that. Another thing that I also do is science awareness. I believe that we must use, we must communicate good science to people. We must communicate about the importance of food safety. And that's what I try to do with my YouTube channel. I started a YouTube channel last year, and I'm so happy about my YouTube channel because you can use it to communicate. And I want to encourage all academics. You must have your own YouTube channel. Share with the world, share with the public your knowledge. And I did a recording with Mr. Daddy Ade, is the director at FDA Ghana. We talked about how to promote culture of food safety in Africa. I did a recording with Dr. Mutsunga, is with Department of Agriculture in Africa, in South Africa. We're talking about food safety in Africa, and we're focusing on so many issues. And he also shared about pesticide residues. We compared the pesticide residues in products that are going to overseas compared to pesticides in products that are for the local market. And we realized that the compliance of the one going to overseas is lower. So we must also think about how to make the food that we sell to people in the country, safer. And recently I did a recording with two people, one Professor Badino in Nigeria and one Dr. Jeb, and we're talking about food safety in Africa with special focus on Nigeria, and people have watched it. And I think this type of platform is powerful to let people know about food safety, to let people know about food safety risk, and how we can overcome it. And I'm also excited about my website, the initiative that I started, Food Safety Africa. I was attending a conference in Salt Lake City, international conference food safety in 2018. It just occurred to me, it was the year that the outbreak occurred in South Africa. It just occurred to me that, Tosi, you know a lot about food safety. Start something. And I started, we have a website, we have a Facebook page, we also have our own Twitter handle. And this was what we tweeted on June 7, World Food Safety Day. We want to remind our readers that the government, food producer, manufacturer, logistic companies, retailers, and consumers all have a role to play in making sure our food is safe to eat. That is, food safety is everybody's responsibility, even consumers. It is your right to know whether the food that you are buying is safe. When you buy the food, it's your right to wash it very well. It's your right to make sure that the food that you are eating will not lead to foodborne illness. And we've done a research before that showed that a lot of consumers don't have adequate food safety knowledge. So it's very, very important for food authorities, manufacturer, retailer, and non-governmental organizations to always sensitize the public about food safety. And one of the things that you can teach them is, steps to food safety. 4 steps to food safety. They are simple things. When I was in secondary school, my coach used to say, simple things that matter. These are simple things that matter. You must teach them how to clean. You must teach them how to separate. You must teach them how to cook very well. And I think it's very, very good for everybody to have a thermometer. When you are grilling, you must have a thermometer that you use to check the internal structure of what you are grilling. And it's very, very important for you to chew very well. How to chew very well, thawing, all those simple things matter. If you don't understand them, they could lead to contamination. In conclusion, I'm going to conclude from the book that I published, Food Safety, Food Science and Toxicology. I wrote, the final chapter is Conclusion and Future Outlook. I'm just going to conclude from there. The future of food is food safety. Smarter food safety that is going to change from using paper-based, system of traceability to using digital technologies that includes blockchain, artificial intelligence, and also Internet of Things. And it's also very important for us to understand, to make our food system safer, we must employ a systematic and proactive approach, like what was signed into law by Barack Obama, Food Safety Modernization Act. I want to encourage all other countries to begin to think of how to adopt it. We adopted the HACCP. We must also begin to think, because we were the one that came up with HACCP, now begin to adopt Food Safety Modernization Act that has been signed into law in the United States of America. Then food scientists and stakeholders must continuously think of producing food that is nutritious, healthy. At the same time, they must also not forget the impact of food production, food processing on the environment. And they must also think of reducing waste through circular food economy. Thank you. I'm now going to go to acknowledgements. I want to acknowledge the following people. I want to thank God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I couldn't have achieved what I've achieved in life if not for God. I would not even be alive if not for God. What is most important to me is my relationship with Jesus. Jesus is my Savior, and I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of him. He has helped me from beginning to the end. He has connected me with people that matter. The people that you can see on this page are the people God has connected with me with. I want to thank my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Olusegun Ijabadeniye in Nigeria. I want to thank my wife, my loving wife. She's my advisor. I want to thank my daughter, my siblings, and my in-laws for their love, for their prayers. I really appreciate them. I'm eternally grateful for the family, for the loved ones that I have. I want to thank Professor Felix Akinyosoye, my BTech supervisor, Professor Tioniola Adebolu, my master supervisor, and Professor Hannah Bays, my PhD supervisor. She was the one that really introduced me to food safety. I want to thank her very much. She's a very wonderful woman. She's currently the HOD of Consumer and Food Science, University of Victoria. I want to thank Professor Lucia Annelish. I really learned a lot from her. She was a former president of SAFOS. I've really learned a lot from her presentation, for her knowledge of food safety, especially in times of regulations. And she also has her own consulting firm, food consulting firm. I want to thank Mr. Frank Ginas. I read his book when I was finishing my PhD. Behavior-based food safety management is a very good book. I always recommend it to my students in the industry that they should have that book. It's a fantastic book. Frank worked for Walt Disney for many years, and after working for Walt Disney, she became the vice president of food safety at Walmart. Then after that, he's currently the deputy commissioner of food safety at FDA. He's a very, very innovative guy, and he was also the one that really, pioneered the use of blockchain at Walmart. Blockchain. He's a guy that really, very innovative guy, like I just said the other time. I want to thank Professor Sibosiboso Muyo. I remember when I arrived at DUT in 2011, I went to meet her. She used to be the director of research, and she gave me a wonderful advice. She advised me like a brother. Prof is not only my mentor, she's my hero. And also Professor Suren Singh. Professor Suren Singh, was my HOD. He was the one that did the interview when I was appointed. If he didn't appoint me, if he didn't recommend me to be appointed, maybe I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be here. Thanks, Prof. I want to thank Professor Kugen Palmer. Professor Kugen used to be the HOD of my department. I remember there was a time I applied for one grant, one Indian fellowship. He gladly, checked the application, and I got the application. Professor Fumi Omoya, my good friend, we were appointed together at FUTA. She also recently became a professor. I'm so glad for that. Professor Oludai Olugbara, thanks for your advice all the time. I want to thank Professor Firoswala. Professor Surupara is not only my HOD, but also my friend. We talked about so many things. We talked about investment. We talked about faith in God. We talked about so many things. I like him. I like him. He's a nice guy. Thank you so much, Professor Firoz, Professor Gebi Dudu at UP. I want to thank Mr. Pete Stoughton. I met Pete in 2014 at Global Food Safety Partnership Conference in Cape Town. And when I met him, he told me, Tosi, he didn't know my name. He said, would you like to be part of Silamat? And he told me about Silamat, that in Silamat, members pay 5,000 euro. Members are from Europe, they are from Asia. The members pay $5,000, so 5,000 euros. But you, because you are from Africa, you're not going to pay. That you can bring your organization to Silamat. I said, okay, I don't mind. And since then, I've been part of Silamat since 2015. We've gone to so many places, Mauritius for free. We've gone to France, to Thailand. It's a very good organization. I've really learned a lot from them. And through Pete, through that organization, I've been able to meet Dide, Dr. Dide Montel, at CIRAD that hosted my PhD student for 3 months. I've been able to meet Anatoly. It was through Anatoly that I met Tatiana, that we applied for South Africa, Russia, bilateral, that we got it. So you can see the importance of relationship, the importance of network. I want to thank all the members of Silamat. I've really learned from you guys. I want to thank colleagues in the department. Thank you so much for your support. I really like my department. It's like we're a family. Thanks for having that kind of a department. And also I want to thank Professor Eric Amosun for your support, Professor Dennis Sandris Nelson at Denmark University. He also hosted my student for 3 months. I want to thank Professor John Mellem also for your support. John Mellem is someone I can always go to. He's tech savvy more than me. If I need anything, I just approach him. Very, very nice guy. I want to thank Professor Pauza Owolawi. It was through Owolawi that I got to know about BRE. Thank you, Professor Owolawi. Professor Rotimi Aluko, I want to thank him too. It was through him that I was able to get my ACU fellowship that allowed me to be at Canada for some time. University of Manitoba. I was hosted by Professor Claudia Naves. Thank you, Professor Naves. I want to thank Pastor John Torrance. Pastor John Torrance is the pastor of the church I attend. Thank you, Pastor John. God bless you. I want to thank Mr. Solomon Nkosi. Solomon Nkosi is my collaborator. We empower smallholders farmers together, you know. Thank you, Mr. Solomon Nkosi. I want to thank all my friends and brethren. I love you so much. Thank you for your support. Also, I want to acknowledge all these organizations that have given me maybe fellowship, that offer free training to me. You know, many of them have given me fellowship. They've given me a lot of sponsorship. I want to, you know, thank. I also want to thank all these other organizations, you know, that have given one thing or the other to me, one fellowship or the other to me. These are my postdoctoral students, you know. When we publish together with them. These are my past doctoral students. They are 3 of them are lecturers in Nigeria, and Dr. Ajibola, he's a postdoctoral researcher at University of Joburg. And these are also some of my past master students. I like motivation. I like motivating people, and that's why I'm going to finish with some motivational, you know, quotes. And I want to encourage everybody watching me, especially professors and scholars, have a beginner's mindset. Don't be like Prof. Krugman, you know. Don't bet against the internet. Always be ready to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Always, always, always. Don't bet against the internet. You know, learn from the young guys that are coming. Learn. There's so many things you can learn from them. You could be wrong. Learn from them. Everything is going to be disrupted. I like Navarra Ravikant. You know, he said everything is going to be disrupted, and I believe the school is going to be disrupted. You can see what is happening with MTN. MTN is coming up with their own school. There's going to be online school for grades 11 and 12. Everything is going to be disrupted. The best thing you can do is to disrupt yourself. Professor Clayton Christensen of blessed memory is a professor of innovation. He said the best way to win in this world that is full of disruption is to always ask the problem to be solved. The problem to be solved by people. If you know the problem, the job to be done by people, you can always, you know, win in the world of disruption. Believe in yourself, dream. I saw the tweet of Jeff Bezos many months ago, many weeks ago, and about how Baron is a popular magazine, you know, that they talk about investment, they talk about finance, and they were making fun of him many years ago that his business was not going to make it. But here we are. He's the second richest man in the world. He's the founder of Amazing. So believe in yourself. Believe in your dream. Don't think about what people are saying about your dream. If you believe in yourself and you work hard and you trust God, you know, you make it in life. Last but not the least, attitude is everything. I like Swindle. Chuck Swindle. He was the one that said that by persistence, the snake got to the hack. And Chuck Swindle is like saying that, look, money is not important. Becoming a professor, It's not as important as having a good attitude. You know, becoming popular in the world is not as important as having good attitude. What matters in life is having good attitude. Make sure that you have good attitude. And I hope you gain one or two things from my lecture today. Thank you.